All right, welcome to another episode of Beyond Baseball, powered by Prospects Live. As always, I'm your host, Jared Perkins. Excited to be here with you today. Fortunately, don't have Dr. Caleb Mezzi with me as he's dealing with some family obligations, but we are excited that we are on episode 13, bringing you another awesome interview. We got two more after this one to wrap up season one, and then we're going to really dive into season two with some awesome interviews. Some other things that we got working on too is we got potential World Baseball Classic previews. So we're trying to pull a couple of players from 2 or 3 teams, see if we can give you kind of a preview of what's going to be happening in the World Baseball Classic. In terms of updates for Prospects Live, a lot of good things happening. Got top 30s for each team available on the Prospects Live Patreon. So you get full scouting reports, everything like that if you subscribe. Access to the first 5 scouting reports and the top 10 are available for everyone. But if you really want to get into those top 30s, you got to get subscribed to that Patreon. A couple other things. Prospects Live now on TikTok, so make sure to go check that out as well. Really trying to grow and expand the reach of Prospects Live and all the great work that the analysts, the writers, and everything are doing as well. For Beyond Baseball, again, like I said, we're on episode 13. We had an amazing interview with Coach Catalanotto, former 14-year big leaguer with the Texas Rangers, Toronto Blue Jays, a couple other teams. But now he's the head coach at Hofstra University. So it seemed like the perfect time to drop this episode as college baseball is kicking off. I think Hofstra kicks off their season on Friday. And this episode's dropping today on Thursday. And so I thought it'd be a good time to really bring you this interview. The one thing that really stuck out to me in this interview was how the lessons that Coach Catalanotto learned during baseball and how he's using that now to really develop the athletes and kind of help them grow as they kind of approach their next stages in life and things like that. And the other thing is just like all the cool stories he has about breaking down at bats with Carlos Delgado or Alex Rodriguez and kind of how they went day by day and trying to figure out a game plan for each pitcher that was on the mound. So I think you're going to really enjoy that story. I want to keep the intro short just to make sure that you all get to really enjoy this interview. So without further ado, here's our interview with Coach Catalanotto. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond Baseball. We have a very exciting guest today, 14-year pro with the Tigers, Rangers, Blue Jays, Brewers, and Mets, and now is head coach at Hofstra, Coach Catalanotto. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Just the first question we always start with, just so viewers can get an idea of who you are. Talk about your journey, how you made it to professional baseball, and then also transition to a career now coaching outside of the game.
Yeah, so, growing up, I was always a big baseball fan. I was lucky enough to get drafted out of high school in the 10th round by the Detroit Tigers. I played 5 years in the minor leagues and got called up to the major leagues by the Detroit Tigers and played with 5 different teams, like you mentioned. But I never really had a passion for coaching. I loved playing the game, and I never really saw myself coaching after my career. But after I retired, I realized that I lost that competitive edge. I loved competing and I couldn't find that anywhere else. And I tried to find it playing basketball or racquetball at the gym, something like that. And, that was okay, but it wasn't great. And I was lucky enough in the middle of 2018 to get a call from somebody that I knew that was working at NYIT on Long Island and asked me if I wanted to be the head coach there. And at first I said, no, I'm not interested. And luckily enough, the guy persisted and asked, hey, could you just meet me for lunch and we can discuss this? And I took the meeting and, he convinced me to go ahead and take it. And I said, listen, I'll do it for a year, but I'm not making any promises. If I don't like it, I'm going to, I'm going to stop doing it. And I just fell in love with it. I'm happy that I took the job. I really enjoyed, I felt like I really had a lot of knowledge, things that I learned from my time in professional baseball that I could pass on to these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And to watch, them make that progress so quickly, and some of the things that myself and my coaching staff were teaching, it was very rewarding. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, it shut down all athletics at NYIT, and you know they said, "Sorry, guys, that we're not going to bring back athletics." And so I was out of a job, and it was frustrating because, like I said, I was enjoying it so much. So I had to wait for about a year or so before the Hofstra job opened, and luckily enough, I interviewed and got the job, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun, and I had some success at New York Tech, and I've had some success in my first year here at Hofstra. So things are going well.
Yeah, you touched on having success at Hofstra. I was going to mention that as well, as you all won a championship too, or conference championship. Talk about like a lot of the lessons that you learned during the game and how you've kind of used those to help translate to coaching and being able to develop the athletes at the college level.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the mechanics of hitting. Has to do with a lot of fielding mechanics and stuff like that. But most of it that I'm able to teach these kids are more the mental part of the game, which is huge. And I don't think that is taught enough to young kids nowadays. But I learned so much by sitting with some of the best hitters ever. Me and Alex Rodriguez would sit there and break down, the pitchers, not only, before the game on video, but also during the game. And Carlos Delgado was great at, picking up when pitchers were tipping their pitches, different tells that they would do with their glove, or, where they would come set. And some of these things, I'm able to tell these kids. I learned a lot of these things when I was, in my late 20s or early 30s. These kids I'm teaching at 18 years old, and it's kind of, it's eye opening to them, and it's giving us as a team a big advantage. Because if we could figure out when a pitcher is tipping his pitches, or if I can tell a kid right before he goes up to bat, he's in the on deck circle, comes up to me and says, "Hey, coach, what should my approach be here?" And I could say, "All right, well, every lefty so far, he started off with a changeup. You might want to, sit on a changeup first pitch," and different things like that. I think it's a big advantage, and it's working out great.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm sure Kale's got a few questions, but it's great that you touched on the mental side of the game. I work for another organization called Major League University, and we focus on mental side for high school athletes and college athletes. And a lot of them don't know these tools and assets that can really, truly help them in developing their game that's outside of the physical parts of the game.
Yeah, it's very interesting too. We talk to so many guests who always say, you know, looking back on their career, they take a lot of the mental side out, but probably going in, they were more there for their physical presence or their physical skills. And I think you kind of started with that and then went into the mental thing. I'm keen on just understanding the transition part and like hearing about your journey and seeing, I played and then I went into coaching. You mentioned that there was, a loss of competitive edge, or you didn't have that outlet to, can you tell us two things? One is, when you were playing, what did you think would happen? What did you think you would do outside of baseball? Eventually it was going to end. You knew that. And then while you were searching for that competitive edge, you mentioned a few sports, but was there anything else that popped up, maybe career-wise, sales, I don't know, that you did anything else? Because there was a gap between you retiring and then getting into coaching.
So yeah, both questions go hand in hand. I was always into real estate. I liked real estate, and I thought to myself, when I retire, maybe I'll start flipping houses, because one thing that I did, in high school, I was into a lot of these architecture classes, and I wanted to potentially be an architect. So knowing as my career was coming to an end that I may wanted to get into real estate, I was thinking, oh, this would be good. I can flip houses and kind of, use some of that architecture that I like. I can kind of knock down walls, remodel things, kind of help the guys that were going to actually do the work, tell them what I wanted done, move bathrooms around, stuff like that. And that's what I did. I did that for about 6 or 7 years until COVID hit. and it was enjoyable. I loved doing it, but again, wasn't that competition.
Right.
I was losing that competitive edge, and like I mentioned before, some of the things that I would do to kind of scratch that itch. Racquetball. Played racquetball all the time. I was starting to get good in that, but it just wasn't the same, right? I knew I had to get back in baseball, and I've got a wife and 4 girls, and if I was to get into professional baseball, I would have to be gone for 8 months out of the year.
Right.
So I really didn't want to leave Long Island, be away from my family for that long, because for the past 19 years I was away on the road, gone all the time. So when the coaching job came up, I said, "Wow, I may have the best of both worlds here. I can stay on Long Island, don't have to be away for too long. I still get to travel a little bit on the road trips, which I enjoy doing, but it's not like a full time deal where I'm away from the family all the time."
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm glad you answered it together. That was kind of why I smacked you with those two instead of brushing them off, because I do think that there's we talk a lot about this process, and there's this planning that you're like, oh, well, when I retire, when I get my last contract and it's up, what are we going to do? Real estate is funny because it often comes up with baseball players. Like, it often comes up as like, either I have this money that I can invest if you've played enough, you've taken those contracts and put them to use, or it's I have a book of business, I know this area, I would like to either develop or sell and get my license. Like, there are so many baseball players in real estate. But it's very interesting because you mentioned that you maybe thought that it would give you this outlet, whether it was a creative outlet or a salesy outlet, or you could just flip houses and make some profit, but it wasn't as competitive, or it didn't give you that adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, and trust me, I'll never get back that adrenaline rush when it's the ninth inning at Yankee Stadium, Mariano Rivera. I understand I'll never get that back. I mean, it's something that I miss. I miss that one-on-one, that competition between pitcher and hitter. And I'll never get that back. Obviously, I've got great memories of that. But, this, at least coaching, it gets me kind of halfway there.
It seemed like, too, with the competitive edge, and this is probably the competitive nature, but we might all look at competitive edge as something different in our own industries and what we're doing. You really valued being able to sit in a dugout and talk to somebody about the craft, right? Like, facing this pitcher or facing this opponent, or what are we seeing here and how can we decipher what that actually is, and doing it with some of the greatest minds. Now you're able to do it on the flip side because you're a coach and you're molding these young minds to be able to either start their own careers. What I'm curious about is kind of twofold. One is, how has the game changed since you were in it? Are players still having these conversations? Are they still talking about this stuff? And then what are you doing as a coach, with this future, which is going to be the future of baseball, but really the future generations?
Yeah, well, I think the game has changed quite a bit in many facets. I mean, I don't think guys are, in the dugout talking about, how to get that edge as much. And obviously it's changed. Like, I have a tough time watching baseball now. Like, I like it better when I was younger and it was small ball. Now it seems like everyone's trying to hit a home run. There's so many strikes in the game. We have these huge shifts, which is great, but no, the hitters aren't trying to go the other way and try to beat the shift. So it's frustrating for me. The way I manage is more of kind of an old school type thing, more bunt, hit and run, get the runner over, get them in. I don't have a lot of power on my team. So it's not like we just sit around and wait for the 3-run home run. And I value putting the bat on the ball. I mean, I think that's kind of lost. Like, coaches are fine with these guys striking out 150, 200 times a year, which to me, I feel like, especially at the college level, put the bat on the ball, put some pressure on the defense, make them make some plays. And you give yourself a better chance to score runs and to win the game. What am I doing? I'm trying to instill in these guys that pay attention, because we can, during the course of the game, I know you want to sit on the end of the bench and just kind of fool around, but let's get up on the steps and watch and see if we can pick up, anything, just to get an edge, whether it be the pitcher tipping his pitches or whether it be the sequence of pitches that he's throwing. Is he getting into some sort of a pattern? I've been lucky because my guys, have been doing a good job with that. And we're not there totally yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, one of the things I really wanted to ask, and I feel like just because of your answer right there, it's just the opportune time, is I think a lot of what you just said, not only just about the game today, but then how you manage and how you kind of implement these strategies with the players that you have, it's reminiscent of your game. Like, I remember you playing, you didn't strike out 150 times, but you also weren't hitting 3-run homers, every game when it came up, that wasn't your game. I think what you're saying is this is how I approach the game and this is how I'm doing it with the players that we have. One of the things I'm curious about is you've had, this career where you got drafted, but you weren't a top, bonus baby, and then you went through the Rule 5 pick. How are you looking at the human? Because you had to do that internally for yourself as a player, and then looking back at the players that you have and saying, like, you're not going to be the first, second, or third round pick maybe, but we have a lot of skills that we can work with to make you a good ball player and a good person. So how did you do that for yourself, and then how are you doing it for these guys?
Well, for myself, it was always, hey, I am what I am. Like I'm never going to be that guy that hits 30 home runs. I'm not going to be the guy that steals 30 bases, but do the things that I can do, and try to do them well, right? Try to put together a really tough at bat, get deep in counts, and try to help the team get to the bullpen. If I could put the bat on the ball, if I could draw a walk, I'm helping my team out, and that's what I'm telling our guys, our team. I mean, the same type of thing, and like I said before, I try to model my team and my players kind of like the way I learned baseball and the way I played baseball, because for me, I mean, I think it's tried and it's true, and it doesn't go away. Like that type of baseball is always going to be winning baseball, I feel like it works, and in 2 years of coaching two different teams at the college level, it has worked, right? Because I watch the other teams and the things they're doing, and they're striking out a lot. Maybe they hit more home runs than us, but we give the team a bigger fight. Whereas I just feel like when you're striking out so much, you're just giving away at bats and opportunities to not only score runs but to knock the pitcher out and get deep into the bullpen.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping too with Major League Baseball now banning the shift that we'll go a little bit back to that. You have the emergence of guys like Stephen Kwan with the Guardians that have really – he became an all-star, and he was almost rookie, or he might have won Rookie of the Year, but he has that same approach at the plate. You talked a lot about the success that you had at the NCAA level so far. I think at your last school that you went to the College World Series. Talk about how having that success has really brought that competitive edge back out in you, and what that experience has been like to take those teams to those different elite levels.
Yeah, well, it's been a great experience. I mean, not only for me, but for the student athletes, and the school. For me, just getting, just winning the conference this year and just going to the College World Series, with New York Tech isn't good enough. Like now, I want more. I want to keep pushing, because we went to the regionals this past year, and we faced UNC and Georgia, and they absolutely killed us. And it's a totally different game of baseball down there. I mean, those teams are amazing. They don't miss. You throw a ball over the plate, they don't miss it. But now it's given me some more fire to say, hey, we're not there yet. They're up here. We're here. We have to get there. So, I feel like a team in the Northeast can compete, but we've got work to do. So it just fuels that fire and that competitive nature for me to say, all right, we went down there, we got embarrassed a little bit. And even in D2 with New York Tech, we were kind of a little bit of a fish out of water. No one expected us to be there. But I think these teams in the Northeast can compete. And like I said, we're working hard to be able to prove it to ourselves that we can.
Yeah, I think so I went and covered the Maryland Regional for Prospects Live, and it was awesome to see more of the Northeast teams in there. UConn was in there, Long Island University was in there, and they're getting more competitive, and that's kind of what you want to see because there's opportunities for athletes in baseball to really succeed in the Northeast, and it's awesome to see.
No doubt.
Yeah, Frank. One of the things that I've seen in your career is you're a guy who plays and kind of just carries himself with passion. I'm curious, what passions you had as a player that were off the field that we may not know about, and then how you've carried them through, post career, but then into coaching, and what you're doing today. Because like you said, you're a father of 4 girls, so you have to have some passions outside that you can just have some either alone Frank time or just maybe enjoy some things with your family.
Yeah, no, I'm always going. Like I never just sit down and watch TV or anything. Like I always want to be something. I still dabble in real estate. I'll always do that. I enjoy that. I'm either playing racquetball at the gym. I'm playing. If I don't know if you guys know about this new game, pickleball.
I know all about it.
Yep.
I'm big into pickleball now. I like playing basketball. I mean, I remain active. I'm not into a lot of my friends or a lot of the guys that I played with are big hunters or they fish. They're fishermen. I haven't gotten into that, but I do like staying active. And I just but this job at Hofstra keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah.
My fiance and I just moved to the suburbs, and there's a pickleball court right across the street. We might have to start.
Yeah. You got to try it out.
I was going to say something very similar. Is that I lived in South Philly for so long and heard about pickleball, and being a sport management professor, we're investing really our time and energy into bringing pickleball expansion and all that stuff into the classroom to see and students love it because they don't really understand it because they're not playing. They're super youthful and they're in their prime, right?
Yep.
But they understand that LeBron's investing Mark Cuban. But now that I'm in the suburbs of South Jersey, there's pickleball tournaments every day. And it's like these people come out and they're sweating. It doesn't matter what time of the year, they're just sweating. So when you say racquetball, pickleball is the first thing I normally think about. But it's good that you have this active lifestyle that you've carried over because a lot of people, whether it's injury related, they feel like they can't participate like they do. But cardiovascular, those are 2 really good sports to stay in shape.
Yep, it is. And another thing that I forgot to mention, but and I didn't do it during my playing career for obvious reasons, but once I retired, I started skiing a lot, and I bought a house up in Pennsylvania on a mountain there. So we do go skiing a lot, and obviously it's about the time of year we're probably going to be heading out there in about. So.
Where are you, Lake Harmony, like that area?
No, I'm in Mast Hope, which is over by Lake Wallenpaupack, I think it's called, Lackawaxen area. So, but I've heard of Lake Harmony.
Yeah, so you're not far from Williamsport, that kind of.
Yes, we're not that far.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. And like you said, you couldn't do that when you were playing, but again, that's a competitive edge for you.
It is. It's
Yeah.
it gets the juices flowing a little bit when you're going downhill and you're going down the black diamonds.
Yeah. You talk about competitive edge a lot, and I love that. And we've kind of touched on that theme a little bit in the podcast. I have to ask, kind of as we wrap into the last couple of questions, you had an amazing career, long career. You got to play with some of the greatest players ever. You were in the World Baseball Classic as well. What's one of your greatest memories from your playing days?
Oh, gosh. Unfortunately, I was never on a World Series team. But, for me, some of the things that stick out, because when I was a little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, I dreamed about being a Major League Baseball player. So I'll always remember my first Major League hit. My dad was there, and it was, it's one thing to get there, but then once you get that first Major League hit, you'll never forget it. When I was with the Blue Jays, I had a 6-hit game. I was 6 for 6 in a 9-inning game. and I hold the record for the Blue Jays. That's something I'll always remember. And then the World Baseball Classic. I mean, it was pretty awesome playing in that. That MLB does a great job with it. I think it's really awesome to try to get all these different countries involved in baseball, and it really promotes the game all over the place. And to be a part of that, I was a part of two as a player and two as a coach. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do the one that's coming up because of my job with Hofstra. We start our season February 17th. But those are some things that I'll never forget, and I've got great memories from my time, and obviously great relationships and guys that I still keep in touch with today.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I want to follow up on that because I love that question from Jared. I think having such a career where you've been on several teams, you've played with some of the greats, and you've had some of your own achievements. I'm curious, like, could you name, it doesn't have to be three, but I was just going to say three things that stand out from playing with the greats. I mean, you mentioned Carlos Delgado, you mentioned A-Rod. There's a bunch of other guys that I know you played with. What are the three things that stand out that kind of take, this is what it is to be great, and you can take that really out of baseball and apply it to life?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Carlos. With Carlos, him and I would write down every single at bat that we had in a book, and we would compare notes. If we were facing Roger Clemens, I would go up to him and say, "Hey, how did he pitch you?" And obviously, we were two different types of hitters. He was a big home run hitter, but still, being left-handed hitters, there were some things that we would compare notes to, and from that, I'm very organized, and in my everyday life, I write things down. Things that I learn or things that I see, I write down in a book, and I think it's important. There's a lot of times that I'll go back and look at different things, like I did, in baseball with the different pitchers. With Alex and I would, before the games, we'd sit in the video room and go over different pitchers and if they were tipping their pitches, and just kind of studying it and getting, because you always want to have that edge. Alex always wanted that edge, and Alex, although he was born to be the best player ever, he was also, his work ethic was second to none. And he was in the cage first, before anybody, and left, last. And he was always trying to get that edge. A lot of people think like, oh, he just rolls out on the field, just an amazing player. But no, he worked very hard. Other guys like Michael Young, I mean, I got to play with him. He's one of my real good friends in the game. And watching him, he went and played every single day. He's as tough as they come. He left everything out on the field. If he was out there, whether he was 100% healthy or not, he always gave everything that he had. And it kind of inspired the guys around him that might have had nagging injuries, but to go out and to play hard. So there's a lot of guys that I learned a lot from, but those three guys were some of the better players that ever played in the game, and some guys that I really enjoyed being around.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to always hear from guys, like the influence that other players had on them during their career as well. And so just thinking about that, the last question that we always ask our guests, if you had one piece of advice for guys who are looking to transition out of the game into their next stage of life, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oh gosh, love it. Whatever you do, enjoy it and have fun. I see too many people that are miserable doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
But for me, I wouldn't do this job if I didn't enjoy it, and if I didn't want to be the best I possibly could be at it. I mean, every single day I'm striving to get better, and I think it's important, to love what you do, and and sometimes it doesn't have to be the first thing you choose, and it doesn't have to be coaching. I mean, but whatever it is, just find a passion for it.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that's an amazing point to wrap up on. And Coach, we can't thank you enough for joining us and taking some time out of your day just to share your story with everybody and how you've gotten to where you are. Wishing you nothing but the best this upcoming season.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.